Hi, welcome to the Vault 34 guide for Spelunking. I want to make as much of this information transferable as I can, so I'm going to talk as much as I can about how I get through a difficult level like this. I haven't memorized the map, although I've done it enough times that I remember it fairly well, but I can still get lost very easily, and in fact I do get lost. I get lost for about 5 minutes in this. It's in a one-take playthrough, beginning to end, 51 minutes. And I use all of my fantasy, roleplay, post-apocalyptic survival game skills to get through it in sort of one take, and it's a dangerous, tricky place to deal with. So right off the bat, I go right into sneak mode, and I really should have stayed there the whole time, but there is some variety to it. Eventually I just start pulling out a sword and charging things, because I got a little sick and tired of sneaking around. Plus, once you've stood up and they know you're around, sometimes it's just easier to get the enemies to funnel towards you through narrow corridors where they generally won't get at you more than 2 at a time. And Vault 34 is not too hard to actually get away with not sneaking, and you won't usually have to fight more than maybe 3 tops at the same time, and even then one of those 3 will be one of the weaker versions of the ghouls. There's 2 versions. There's the weaker version and then the security officer version, which is an armored version, and armor-piercing ammo is a good idea for that. You'll constantly need to be using Rad-X and Rad-Away. Don't allow yourself to go into Rad sickness. It's not a good idea. The penalties will start to get pretty severe as it goes along. At one point I forget to keep using my Rad-X. It's hard sometimes to pay attention to the little messages when they pop up, but it's very important to do it. You need to stay on top of your rad resistance. I'm using the best rad resistance item that is in the DLC costume, which is the spacesuit, which has a defense threshold of 10, and it has 40% rad reduction, which is excellent. And I'm also using a fairly high medicine skill with Rad-X, which gives me the maximum rad resistance of 85%. That's where it caps out. It doesn't matter how good you are after that. Once you can hit 85%, that's as good as it gets. Always have 85% rad resistance while you play Vault 34. It's very important. So right now, I am now keeping a wall to my left, more or less. This is a tricky map to navigate. I don't do the normal completionist style play that I would with this. I don't search every container. I don't search every corner to make sure I get everything. I skip over a lot of things. I'm still fairly thorough. But here's how I explore it the way I normally would. I don't take a lot of shortcuts here. So I'm keeping a wall to my left, and I saw a set of stairs over there, so I drew a temporary wall over the stairs. I don't want to change levels yet. So I go around, keep exploring the rest of the room with a wall to the left, and then go back to the temporary wall I drew over the stairs and change levels, except that it wasn't a set of stairs, and that was completely nonsensical. If it had been a set of stairs, what I said would have made sense. It's 51 minutes long. I'm occasionally going to sound like an idiot. I apologize. In any case, if you come across a set of stairs and you're keeping your wall to your left while you're exploring and you're using that to keep track of where you're going, that's how you do it. You draw a temporary wall over the stairs until you've finished exploring the level that you're on, and you make a mental note of where the stairs are, and then after you have looped back around to where you started, you go back to the stairs. There are other tricks that you'll need to know how to use with certain kinds of mazes, which are the island in the middle. The island in the middle can actually mess up the keep a wall on your left tactic as well. But otherwise, in the world of video games, game designers apparently love to reward people who keep a wall to their left. Because I swear, 90% of the time, keeping a wall to your left specifically, not right, but left, will actually give you your encounters in a relatively ideal order. Almost every video game I've ever played, that seems to be true. I swear it's almost as though they do it on purpose. I'm kind of convinced they must instinctively do it on purpose. I'm sure I'm not the only person who uses keep a wall to your left to get through a labyrinth. It's a famous trick. Anyway, I eventually decided to skip going down the stairs entirely and just jump down. Normally you wouldn't do that, but I knew everything was dead. You're going to be constantly bathed in radiation in here, so it's very important to stay on top of the Rad-X and the Radaway. And later on, when I make the mistake, one of the big hints you're going to notice when you screwed up is, gee, it seems like my Rad level goes up a lot more frequently than it was before. And that generally means that your Rad-X ran out, you didn't notice, and you've forgotten it. And when I noticed that, I should have took my Rad-X right away, but that happens later. For now, I'm still keeping a wall to the left, just to get through all the little rooms that branch off from the central room. And there's 2 central rooms in Vault 34. There's an upper one and a lower one, and you want to remember them both. I'm about to re-enter the upper central room. And from here on out, that's how I'm going to refer to this room. We're not going to come back here very often, but it's the one where I dropped down, right here. You can see the hole in the floor? That, we're going to call it the upper central room. We're going to try and work our way back here later, but we're not going to need to be here for a while. And then there's a lower central room, which is very tricky to navigate, and I'm going to point it out when we get to it. And we're going to use those 2 as our landmarks. So I haven't stayed like right on top of my motions here, but you can see me double checking that I've gone along the left wall to search everything. And in general, with any maze or labyrinth that you're exploring when you're spelunking, if you are aware of 2 choices, and one of them is a dead end, and the other one leads to your eventual objective or goal or the next thing that you're supposed to do for your mission or what have you, you should always explore the dead end first. The dead end, exploring the dead end first is basically how a completionist would approach the game. And as you play through a game, generally the rewards for exploring the dead end first compound each other, because you continuously find better and more useful items and little hidden tricks and secrets that other people don't necessarily have available, many of which will actually make a lot of video games easier in the latter stages. So it's a good idea to do that as you play through. So as much as possible, whenever you notice that there's a little room that juts off from your path, you can break off from keeping a wall to your left and just check out that room. As long as you remember where you left off from, you just go, you check out the room, you see what's in there, and then you go back and you start keeping a wall to your left again, and it increases the chances that you'll thoroughly explore everything, that you won't miss anything important. And I'm doing this on a faster than normal time scale. I would normally be taking a lot more time with this, but I'm aware in the back of my head that I'm recording this for a guide. And so I'm making an effort not to spend a lot of time going into every single container. I'm just trying to stick with the containers that I know are important. And as I go through, I'm constantly trying to remember, as you can see in here, to use the various drugs. And I don't actually have to put on the follower's coat anymore to reach 85% rad resistance. But I do tend to put it on to use Radaway, because it still increases the effectiveness of Radaway. It increases my medicine by 10. And that's one of the tricks that is very important in Skyrim or Fallout or any game like this. They almost always have clothing items that add to your skills. Make full use of those. If you'll notice, every time I go into my inventory, I have a ton of skill-based clothing in there. I've got something that gives me survival +5, something that gives me lockpick and utility. Vault. I'll just talk about some of the best clothing items in Fallout New Vegas. The Vault 3 utility outfit gives you +5 lockpick, and I believe it's the only non-DLC outfit that gives you +5 lockpick. And it gives you +5 repair as well. It is an absolutely fantastic item. And as soon as you can handle going into Vault 34, I recommend you go in and get it. Frankly, you don't have to be particularly tough. One of the first items in the game you can get your hands on is a great con outfit. And by the time you have access to the place, you can go get one at Chance's Grave anyway. You can throw on a great cons outfit, walk right into Vault 3, and that's all you'll need to do it. And you can get a Vault 3 utility outfit. It's incredibly useful. +5 repair and +5 lockpick. You only need 70 lockpick skill, and you can unlock hard locks. It saves you skill points every time you level up your character that you can use clothing like that. So I have another one, a Sorrow's outfit for survival, which I can use at campfires for making items. I have the follower's outfit for both medicine and science. They both raise those by 10. So in a perfect world, I would never bother raising my science skill above 80 because I'd never need to. There's more than enough Programmer's Digests that, combined with the follower's outfit, would lift my science skill up to 100 anytime I would need to crack into a computer. And I completely didn't notice that zombie, so that's a 90 skill, sneak skill for you. You can walk right past a zombie without even recognizing that he's there, and he won't even see you. Getting back to Vault 34 specifically, rather than just sort of general gameplay tips, although I do want to include some of those. This is an important thing I'm about to do here, and I'm going to zoom in and start paying close attention. Fairly shortly, I'm going to come across an important section of the game, where to the left is a computer, to the right is to a computer, and ahead is the armory, and it's an important place to remember and be able to navigate back to, and in fact trying to get back to it later on is where I get lost. When you're first organically searching through the way I am now, you'll come across the armory quite naturally. Later on, after you've traveled to the more sort of oblique areas, the ones that are a little harder to get to, it's very easy to get lost. And this technique of keeping a wall to your left to sort of work your way back to a place you recognize and can use as a landmark saves me. I get lost for 5 minutes in here, and I'm going to show you how I use that technique to get myself out of it and figure out how to get out of Vault 34, because it's very easy to get trapped down there, wandering in a circle, trying to figure out why you can't find your way out. Chance's knife, by the way, is a magnificent weapon if you take the right perks. I sort of, very early on in my gameplay experience, decided I loved Maria and Chance's knife and set out to prove that if you reinforced them with the right perks, they would remain some of the most powerful weapons in the game all the way until level 30. And I've not only successfully proved it, but I discovered I loved it so much that, yeah, you can see me just wandering around. That's Chance's knife, one of the most powerful weapons in the game. Needs the right perks to be that powerful, but absolutely deadly weapon, and I love it. It is so fun. It swings so quickly. So lockpicking. This is mostly muscle memory. Once you get the hang of it, it's fairly easy to do. In fact, it's so fast, I couldn't even explain what I'm doing anymore. I do lockpicking. That took me 3 tries to get in. That's just an average lockpick. So it wouldn't even be an easy thing to explain, frankly. Unless I were to sort of sit down and dedicate an entire video to it. But anytime you can do it, don't force the lock. If you really need to, if you have a hard time with it, save before you go in to do the lock, and just try and plug your way through it. If you end up going through too many bobby pins, just reload and try again. Every time you end up having to start from scratch, it's pretty much going to be a new lock anyway. When we get to the computer puzzles, I'm going to do my level best, and here we come up on one right now. So I'm going to use the technique I talked about just a few moments ago of putting on clothing and using drugs and magazines to raise my skill to 100 so I can access the puzzle. And then I'm going to do my level best to explain how I solve the puzzle as I go. This is a notoriously tricky part of the game, and a lot of people struggle with it. And I definitely struggled with it back in Fallout 3, my first 2 or 3 playthroughs, until I developed the techniques that I use to get through it now. So I'm going to give you a brief, straightforward explanation after I've finished killing off of these various zombies here. I'm going to give you as straightforward an explanation as I can, real time, of what I'm doing. I get these on the first try without a whole lot of incident, just following the techniques that I would normally use. And I would say don't be intimidated by the fact that it's a very hard puzzle, because in fact sometimes the easy puzzles are harder than the very hard puzzles, because a 4-letter word can be a lot harder to work with. When I do actually click on this computer, what I'm going to do just before that is throw on the clothing, grab the magazine, and then I'm going to look for the words that have recurring patterns in them. The most common ones are T-I-O-N, I-N-G, ED, ES, that kind of thing. You want the longer ones as much as you can. You want to pick the T-I-O-N if it's an option. But look at how many words have the combinations. The first guess that you pick is actually very important, and it's kind of the key to doing the puzzle quickly and easily on the first try, is to make sure that you pick a good word off the bat. You need to get a little bit lucky, but numbers that are higher than or lower than certain thresholds will make the puzzle a lot easier when you pick words that have a combination that will repeat frequently in the puzzle. And I think this is the only time I save. You should save often, a lot more often than this. I tier save with 3 saves, and then every hour or every 2 hours of gameplay, I'll branch off, lock off an additional save, and eventually I'll end up with 30 or 40 of them. Okay, real time as best I can. So immediately as I go looking through these words, I only have a small screen to work with. I start to notice that T-I-O-N is showing up. SHIPS will occasionally show up a lot, but that's not the case here. We have a few ings, we have an SION, a lot of TIONs, so very quickly I decide I'm going to go with civilization. It's an easy word for me to remember how to spell, and so it's going to be my first guess. And very lucky, 6 out of 12. Excellent start. Now I'm going to stop guessing entirely. What I'm doing here is from the top, I'm looking for the bracket hints. Matching brackets on any line of text. There's one right there. Now that removes one of the duds. You want to try and find every single one of these that you can, and you want to completely ignore the words. You have to memorize your first word. I have to remember that it's civilization and that I had 6 correct. That's the information that I have to remember. The rest, I can eject everything else. I don't have to pay any attention to it. I just have to systematically go through, find all of these brackets, hope that you get that one. Allowance replenished is the best one. You want it. Getting 5 guesses makes this puzzle incredibly easy. And then I just want to finish it on the other side as well. I'm going to move back up. I'm not paying the slightest attention to what these words are. I don't want to cloud my brain with more information than it can hold. I want this to be as easy and quick as possible. So I'm just skipping through it all and just grabbing all the brackets. And I think there aren't any more. I believe I grabbed all the ones that are actually in it. Nope, there's one more at the top. I can see it now. And I grabbed the last one, which will get rid of one more dud. Now, as soon as I go through, all I have to do is go through each word systematically. I can skip anything that doesn't have several. Because I know I have 6, I'll be able to skip a lot. Conversation right off the bat is a candidate that has exactly 6 letters, so it's a legitimate guess, and I will press it. If it didn't have exactly 6 in common, I would not have pressed it. If it had 7 in common, I wouldn't have pressed it. If it had 5 in common, I wouldn't have pressed it. Don't waste a guess that can't also be the answer. That's how you get through it. So I happen to get lucky. That was the second guess on that one. I think it takes a little bit longer to go through in the next one, but it's about as equally simple. Now, if that hadn't worked, if I had been forced to continue guessing, I would have kept track of each word, because now all the guesses are going to be right at the bottom, so I only have to remember civilization. All of the bits that would have knocked the words off the screen so that I couldn't see them anymore have been taken care of. I get them out of the way first. So I would check against civilization for 6 first, and then whatever other guesses I had made, whatever new number I had, let's say that other one had returned a number of 7, then whatever the answer I was guessing on, it would have to qualify for both, or I would not guess it. It would have to have 6 in common with civilization and 7 in common with conversation, or I wouldn't guess it. If it had 6 in common with one but not 7 in common with the other, I wouldn't guess it. And you go through each word systematically, and as you progress through the puzzle, it gets more complex and a little trickier to get a hold of, but because all the information you need is still kept in a chunk right at the bottom, you can refer back to it. You can always see your last 3 to 4 guesses because you're lumping them all in at the end. I'll explain that again the next time I do a computer puzzle, and hopefully that will make a little more sense. So because I unlocked that computer, I was able to skip a section of the game that would have required me to go in and use the rebreather to swim underwater and find part of the password for the computer, which is located on technicians' bodies in 2 ends of Vault 34 underwater. It's a pain in the butt, and even if you have the rebreather, it's a bit weird swimming underwater anyway while you're taking radiation. So I skip over that by doing the computer puzzles at the very hard difficulty level. If you don't have the ability to do that when you do Vault 34, you're not going to have a choice. You're going to have to swim underwater in order to unlock the computers. You're also going to have to find an upper level, which I don't bother to do in this playthrough because I didn't eventually need it. But you're going to want to go through the upper level to find part of the Overseer's password. I found the part of it that I needed next to one of the 2 computers. It's sitting on, I think, one of the pieces of furniture in the room. I don't remember exactly when it happens in the video. But the other one, which I don't need because I ended up doing the puzzle to get it instead. The other one is on an upper level. It's a set of stairs that will eventually lead up to the top, and it's a transcript of the Overseer's speech. And you'll need that at some point. You won't actually see me go do that part of the puzzle. Unfortunately, I didn't realize until after I'd finished it that that was the case. So if you don't have the ability to do science very hard, you will not be able to use this to actually get through the whole thing, and I apologize for that. I believe I'm just healing myself up at this point. Oh, I'm doing the other terminal. Okay, I'm going to zoom right in here and pay attention to what's going on. So I'll explain it again as this happens, and hopefully I won't screw it up and get ahead of myself or behind of myself. So right off the bat, I want to look for words with recurring patterns in them. And as I see this, once again, I see TION words. And I happen to notice that civilization is one of the words on there. Well, by golly, it's a sign, I think to myself. So we get 3 on this one, and right away I immediately stop checking words again. I don't want to clutter my brain with information I can't hold. And civilization is the word, and 3 is the number. So that's what I'm going to remember for later on, because civilization will probably get knocked off. As I progress through this bit, you notice it gets pushed further up on the screen, and in fact it's already halfway up the screen. Before long, it's going to pop all the way off the top, and I won't be able to see it anymore. I will not be able to refer back to it. That's why I have to remember the word and how many letters match up. The letters, by the way, literally mean matching up in the exact place with the exact letter. So you have to try and imagine the 2 words next to each other in your head and compare the letters to each other. That's how the letters, they need to match up exactly. So 3 will exactly match up with the correct answer. That's what that clue means. So when I look into appreciation, I notice right away that TION is 4 letters. I can skip every word that has TION in it because 4 is not correct. None of them can be the right answer. Only one that matches civilization with exactly 3 can. Immaculately matches up with exactly 3 letters. So it is a legitimate guess. And so therefore I will actually click it. Or, nope, am I wrong? I'm wrong, sorry. Ha! Told you, 51 minutes. I'm going to sound like an idiot at least a few times. Disappearing has 3 letters in it that match, and so it was a legitimate guess. And I skipped immaculate because it wasn't. Anyway, the idea is there. I got a bit lucky on both of those and happened to get the right answer, but you improve the odds that will happen, obviously. Luck is at least partly your own design. Luck is the reward for creating the scenario in which things can work out for you. By making sure I never guess a word that doesn't match with exactly 3 letters, I significantly increase the odds that my second guess or third guess will actually be the correct answer. Because you don't really want to use all 4 guesses if you can avoid it. And the other option, of course, if you really just want to rush through it, you can save and just run in and make 4 guesses off the top and do that over and over again. In my experience, that does not end up going faster, at least not when I do it. But it is an option. So I've now unlocked both computers, which means that I have access to the Overseer's office, and I've made everything available to me. The Overseer's office is a little bit tricky to get to, but I use the wall to my left as I leave the armory, and that actually takes you pretty much directly to it. So I'm back to the hallway with the armory again. I don't need to go to the armory. Oh no, sorry, I'm not there yet. Now I'm back to the hallway with the armory in it. So I finished unlocking both of the vaults. The water's been drained on at least one of the sides, and that's the armory. But I'm not going to bother going in yet, because there's no point. What we want in the armory, the cool stuff in Vault 34, can't be accessed yet. I still have to go to the Overseer's office. So literally keeping a wall to my left from the armory hallway, which is an important landmark to remember, and this is the lower central room I referred to earlier, where it gets a little bit tricky to navigate. It's a little hard to see on the other side, but whenever you look back behind you, it's got the safe on the wall, hidden slightly behind some furniture. And I'm using the map now to sort of keep track of where I am. There's the safe on the right. We watched as I came through this room earlier. So I go back through the room, and I'm keeping a wall to my left. And it's not a fast way. It's a little indirect, but it gets me to the Overseer's office. And I believe coming out of the Overseer's office is when I get lost on the way back. So doing the Overseer section of the game is fairly straightforward. I do the same thing I normally do, keep a wall to the left to make sure I explore everything, check into all of the rooms, and pick up any cool stuff that I might not miss. As a result, I end up with a Guns and Bullets magazine somewhere, which is a good thing to make sure you get while you're here as well. It's on a couch somewhere, I don't remember specifically where. but I did end up grabbing it during this walkthrough. Hopefully I'll point it out when it happens. At this point, I probably should be sneaking. It would actually be making things go faster. These are not the most perceptive creatures, by the way. Feral Ghouls Underground in Fallout 3 were far more perceptive than these guys. It's very easy to sneak up on these guys. Taking them on 2 at a time is dangerous. These are not particularly tough if you're level 30 the way I am, but 2 of them beating on you at the same time with their melee is actually quite dangerous, even a high-level character. Because you're stuck using something that's giving you some kind of radiation protection, you don't have the luxury of using high-end armor very much. There is some power armor that gives you rad protection as well, but your survivability in Vault 34 really does depend more on rad resistance than it does on damage threshold. And for that reason, I actually don't recommend power armor unless there's a version that I'm forgetting that actually has a comparable level of rad resistance that can get you up to 85%. If you can get up to 85% with power armor, then by all means it's an excellent choice. But if you can only get up to, and I think power armor, I think most of the rad resistant ones max out at about 15-20% from what I remember, that's not enough, I don't think. You're going to want to get all the way up to 85% rad resistance. And so for that reason, these guys can be a little bit dangerous, because 10 damage threshold is not really that high in the world of armor. It's basically light armor damage threshold. But the spacesuit is enough to get the job done. And this is only an Endurance 2 character. I used to do 1. Now I do 2 Endurance with the design. So not a lot of hit points, comparatively speaking. But damage 10 threshold is enough to survive. This may be one of the occasions where I forget to use Rad-X. And my radiation level actually starts to increase fairly frequently. One of the things I'm doing with this character is I'm switching back and forth a lot between guns and melee. In Fallout 3, you could completely ignore melee as a gun-style character, and there really wasn't any disadvantage to doing that. But in Fallout New Vegas, this is the hardcore difficulty level I'm doing this on, by the way. I think experienced players will probably recognize that. You'll notice that I have a hydrated meter and a food meter and a sleep meter and all of that. Fallout New Vegas changed enough of the mechanics of the game that it doesn't really work as simply as it did in Fallout 3. You can no longer reliably headshot. In Fallout 3, if an enemy's head was half inside your chest, you could still get a headshot with a pistol without any difficulty. It wasn't a big issue to get rushed. But in Fallout New Vegas it is. If you're using guns, it can get tricky if you're getting swarmed by melee enemies. And I found early on in my experience that I liked having powerful melee abilities to get myself out of that situation. And as I played through each playthrough, I discovered that I could refine the build very effectively to a point where my gun skills were still top of the line, and I was able to use guns as effectively and in as deadly a manner as I possibly could. And yet I was also able to seamlessly on a dime switch to melee combat and be just as effective. And that's basically what you're seeing me do, is the katana and Chance's knife have excellent reinforcing perks to support them. So I just reinforced a lot of the perks that help the situations where I'm in the most danger of dying. So once I've got my gun skills at a very high level, I actually do prefer to improve the melee skills because I'm not worried about being able to hit distance. This is an effective sneaking sniper. If I were outside, I wouldn't have any difficulty sniping enemies with headshots at 2 miles away, especially if I'd been smart enough to bring companions with me, which I didn't realize until about 10 minutes into recording this, that I'd completely forgotten to go pick up Eddie and Boone after coming back from doing Honest Hearts, the DLC, where you can't bring your companions with you. So I'm doing all of this alone, which is one of the reasons why I'm not bothering to pick up all of the stuff, which I really theoretically should be picking up, is because I just don't have the room to carry it. I don't have any pack mules with me, so to speak. But if I was outside using Boone and Eddie, I'd be able to snipe an enemy in the head from 2 miles away very reliably. Eddie will give you the red ticks at an enormous distance, and Boone gives you a red marker around enemies that makes it incredibly easy to target them at long distances in almost any lighting scenario. And between those two things, you don't really need endless reinforcing gun perks. I eventually give myself those. But once my gun skills reach a certain competency level where I can reliably kill things at a distance with a headshot, I start to reinforce my melee skills in New Vegas until I reach a point where if I get rushed by enemies, I don't have to worry about panicking or doing anything special. I can just push, well, in my case, I push down on the D-pad. That's where my melee weapon is always mapped to, whichever my main melee weapon is. I tend to switch back and forth between the katana and Chance's knife once my character has both those weapons. And once I have the melee weapon out, I just go into melee mode, which once you've practiced a little bit, you'll find that you can take on most enemies without using VATS, which is a very handy skill to have. So it gives me this sort of two-way ability to, rather than try and shoot enemies that are rushing me with a gun in real time, which I actually find very difficult to do in this game, I just prepare for the rush by immediately pressing down on the D-pad, getting my melee weapon out, and preparing for them, getting into a defensive position, and then just using the melee weapon. Once you've got the hang of it a little bit, it doesn't take that many perks to make a character really deadly with it. The one specific catch is it's very hard to acquire the piercing strike perk without spending a lot of points on unarmed, which is a big pain, because you want it as a melee character, but they don't allow melee as a prerequisite for it. The Overseer is a very tough enemy, by the way. If I made that look very easy, that's deceptive. It's because I'm level 30. The Overseer has a lot of health. And I was using right-hand advantage there, which is a handy little trick to avoid engaging him directly, so he wasn't shooting back at me. But if he's shooting back at you, he can hurt you. He's a very damaging enemy. And when you only have endurance 2, as this character does, he could very easily have been a problem for me. That would have been unfortunate, but that might have been a point where I would have had to reload right there. The Overseer, if I'm not careful, especially you'll notice I was attacked from behind. I was not good situational awareness there. At this stage of the mission, it's very straightforward. You're not going to get lost down here. This is a very small and simple map for Vault 34. I explore this room. It's not necessary. I could shortchange all of this, but I keep doing the bait. Like, I don't have this memorized. This isn't a walkthrough, so I'm just keeping a wall to my left. It's just the easiest way not to get lost. And whenever I'm in doubt, I put a wall to my left again. And I get lost coming right out of this section of the game. I remember it, and it is as soon as this is over. I want to warn everybody of a bug now. Right at this point, save. Everybody. Save before you interact with that terminal. I don't know if the latest patch fixed this bug, and I'm never going to take the risk of finding out, and neither should you. Save immediately before engaging. Now, the reason is because once you interact with this computer, a bug may or may not kick in, which will permanently lock you out of being able to complete this quest. The quest being Hard Luck Blues. Although you can access this particular computer terminal, the bug, once you've accessed it, is whether or not you can actually access the next computer terminal, because that one just unlocks this door. What you need to be able to do is access this terminal, and if the bug kicks in, you become permanently locked out of this terminal. You can never interact with it. So save first, and if this is locked and you can't get in, reload and you're fine. As long as you reload to before, you've got a good chance that after 2 or 3 tries you'll be able to get through it. The bug is very, very common. I chose to go with the NCR. In this playthrough, I think I'm actually going to either go with Mr. House or use the S-Man to take over myself. Is pretty much what I've decided. But I'm a bit pragmatic, and there are still uses to having a high relationship with NCR. There is, however, only a karma reward for helping the people of this vault, so I kind of go with the pragmatic solution. I improve my relationship with the NCR, and I let the people in the vault die. That's basically what you're choosing between there. So I chose the NCR. It's a practical solution. I don't need karma at this point, and I'll never need it again. I rob people blind in every town I go to, and I always have massive amounts of positive karma. The game does not really create a... it's a simple moral system. It's not a complex moral system in Fallout. And besides, the broader theme of Fallout is always, no matter what you do, you're always sacrificing something. Nobody's got a perfect system. It was the same in Fallout 2. I never played the first one. But in every version of Fallout, you can never there's no such thing as a perfect happy ending to Fallout. There's always complexities. There's always unforeseen consequences of a negative nature for even the best of intentions. So this is when I get lost, and we're about to spend about 5 minutes walking around in a big circle, and I apologize for that. It's one of the things that can happen when you play Vault 34. And it's because I lose track of those two rooms that I referred to, the upper central room and the lower central room. And the lower central room is the one that's a little tricky to navigate. It's the one with the safe in it that you've seen me walk through a couple of times already. You'll pass through it on your way to the armory. You'll pass through it on your way back to the Overseer's Vault. And I got it into my head, and I was completely mistaken, that all I needed to do was keep a wall to my right, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to get back to the armory. I don't know why I got that into my head that was going to work, but that was how I remembered it. I was like, oh, I got to the Overseer's Vault by keeping a wall to my left, so I'm going to keep a wall to my right. That's going to take me straight back to the armory. I completely forgot one of the steps along the way, and I look at this, and I'm thinking, oh, wait, this isn't right, is it? And at some point, I just end up going in a big circle for a while, and it takes me a little bit to find the armory. Anyway, while we were down in the Overseer's Vault, one of the things that we did on his computer was we unlocked the armory. And the armory is really the key reason why I'm here. The mission is valuable. It's worth experience. It will help you level up. Fallout is a huge game, and I'm kind of the belief that experience and money in Fallout is infinite, so I'm not as worried about experience or money. I'm always very anal about being a completionist when I play the game, except now I've played it 7 or 8 times, so I'm not nearly as anal about being a completionist anymore. I'm willing to let a few missions slide. But I do like to finish this particular Vault 34 mission. I should have just dropped down that hole right there. It would have saved me a lot of time, but I didn't. No, I just spent the next little while walking around in a circle trying to find the right room and not being able to find it. Eventually, I stopped doing the same thing over and over again, and I actually remember to start keeping a wall to my left and just keep going in a circle until I eventually break the pattern and see an option I have not tried yet. So this is one of the rooms that I come back into, I think, several times during this process. And I know I've already explored it, so I don't even know why I would bother to check that first aids room. But the first aids room sounds slightly off. I would have been fine if I'd gone down that stairwell. I'm an idiot. But anyway, I was mistakenly thinking that I was going to find it on this level, and it's not. It's the level beneath me. That's what I'm looking for. I should have dropped down the hole. I should have gone down the stairs. But the central room that I'm looking for, the one with the safe in it, can be tricky to find when you forget where it is, when you lose track of it. It can be tricky to navigate because at least one of the exits is completely hidden from about 2/3 of the room. You have to be standing at a particular sliver or angle to see it, and if you're not, it's very easy to walk into the room, look around, think that you're seeing a dead end, and walk back out again. And I've done it many times, and I suspect I'm not the only one. And that's why I try and remember its existence, and I sort of keep referring to it as the lower central room, to sort of keep track of it and remember that when I see it, this is the room from which, that's the one I'm always looking for and forgetting where it is. And so I try and remember the tricks for finding it. This is when I think I start to get my act together a little bit and realize that I needed to go down a level. But I'm still, at this point, keeping a wall to my left, trying to find my way to something that I don't immediately recognize as the same circle I've just been doing, so I can sort of find my way out of it. And several times I think I find the room, and it turns out that I haven't. Vault 34 can get confusing, and it can be very easy to get lost. This definitely looks like the room. And there is the armory. So I finally managed to make my way over. It took a while. I don't know how long that was. Probably about 5 minutes. So there's the armory. I eventually got my act together, remembered to go downstairs, try to do something different, that was the part I thought I was supposed to find it on the level above, and I had to remind myself, well, if I haven't found it yet, change levels, go down a set of stairs, then start looking with the wall to your left. And that's how I worked my way out of that. And I don't run into the same problem on the way back up. I actually have a fairly smooth ride out from what I recall. It goes smoothly from here. So the armory, and this will be another little bit of a boring bit coming up, and I apologize for that. Exploring the armory is nothing you need to see, but I don't want to cut anything out because it's such a hard place to navigate that if you're following the video for whatever reason, because you're stuck in Vault 34 and you're using it as a layout, I don't want to put any cuts in it so that you have to try and figure out how the cuts go together. I just want to leave it all as one take, so that if you had to, and it would suck, I wouldn't want to do it, but if you were so stuck that you needed a guide out because you couldn't find your way, you can use this video for that. There are no cuts in it, it's all one take, so as long as you can find a landmark, you can start following the rest of the video to make your way out. Once I'm actually inside the vault, I'm looking for two things specifically. One of them is All American, which is one of the best guns, non-DLC guns in the game. And I don't actually use it. By the time I do Vault 34, I typically do not carry its ammo type anymore. So it tends to be a bit of a pain for me to start using it, because at that point I try to minimize the number of ammo types I have to carry around. I tend to prefer, for example, I use the sniper rifle and this machine, both of which use 308. And so I only need to carry 308 and AP, and that'll serve two different guns, and I kind of like that. So as much as possible I try and do that. And another gun there's the guns and bullets right there if you're looking for it. I just found it. It's right between those two couches, so it's down in the same area with the armory. You don't actually have to unlock the armory, I don't think, to get to it, but it is down in the actual armory section. And then I believe after this I work my way back to the section of the armory that is technically locked, and that's the part that I actually have to go to the overseer's section and use the computer to open up. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be able to get into this room. Which is why you need to leave that's why I ignored the armory earlier when I was standing next to it. I mentioned that I could have gone in there, but I didn't want to. It's because there wouldn't have been any point. Part of it would have been locked. I would have had to explore it twice, and there was no point in exploring it twice. So I think this is the door. Yes, this is the door. So this is the room in question. This is essentially the point to doing the armory. There's tons of stuff in here, and because I did not bring any companions with me, I am not going to be picking up most of it, which doesn't stop me from taking probably a good 5 minutes to explore this room. So mainly what you're looking for in here is All American. All American is the marksman carbine variant, which looks a lot like the assault carbine, so I guess it could be an assault carbine variant. I'm not sure. They don't use the same ammunition type, though. And the marksman carbine can be used to repair All American, but the assault carbine can't, I believe. I'm going to go with that. From what I remember, that's true. If it turns out I'm wrong, meh. It won't be the only time I sound like an idiot at some point in this. I try and be fairly thorough in here. There's a ton of stuff in here. There's sniper rifles, there's missiles, there's a lot of 40mm grenades. I would normally pick up the 40mm grenades simply because they're rare. I don't actually use them very often. In fact, I pretty much hardly use them at all. But I like to pick up anything that's rare and just at least give myself the option. And if I had a couple of companions with me and some storage space, I would have picked up the 40mm grenades. I probably would have picked up a few missiles too, just to have the option of using some of the more interesting heavy weapons, if I should choose to, or to give them to, there are certain companions who can use heavy weapons effectively, and you can give them to those companions, and it's good to have ammunition for them. Certain companions really do shine when you put specific powerful weapons on them, and Boone is an excellent example of that. For a combination of reasons, even though I use a ninja sniper, I actually have the Gobi sniper rifle, but if you were to look through my weapons list while I was scanning over it, you would notice I don't have the Gobi sniper rifle on me. I don't carry it around with me, which might seem like a strange choice for a sniper character. Why would I choose an ordinary sniper rifle over the Gobi sniper rifle? And the answer is actually because the Gobi sniper rifle is the superior weapon once the enemies are aware that you're there. It has a number of advantages. It fires faster, it uses fewer action points and VATS, it does more damage per shot. It's got a number of advantages from a run and gun firefight point of view, but that's not what I use my sniper rifle for. So as much as I love the Gobi for the fact that when, things hit the fan, you can use the Gobi sniper rifle much more effectively, it's not so good because you can't silence it. You can't use it repeatedly at distance as effectively for taking multiple enemies out with single kill shots. So I don't carry it around. If I want to use a 308 rifle for close or moderate combat, I'll use this machine, which is superior to the Gobi sniper rifle for that purpose. And if I want to snipe as a ninja at a distance, I will use the natural, no variant of it, just the natural sniper rifle, because you can put a silencer on it. Christine's version of the sniper rifle, I believe it's called COS, which you can get. It's the best one. Because it's like the Gobi sniper rifle in that it's superior in a number of ways, but you can also, it's silenced, so it does work for repeatedly getting the sneak critical bonus. However, it requires completing Old World Blues, which is a very lengthy and complex DLC to finish. So this is actually a lot easier. Anyway, so I don't have the Gobi with me, but the Gobi sniper rifle is magnificent in Boone's hands. It is considerably more powerful than his normal hunting rifle is. Now, it will chew through ammo very quickly, but as you play through the game, if you're meticulous with resource management, and I typically am, you end up with a ton of 308 ammo. You never have to buy it. You'll find it in all kinds of places. And if you're conservative about using it during your earlier stages of the game, during which I usually just leave him with his hunting rifle, because frankly it's an excellent weapon for an infinite ammo companion weapon. I really think he's one of the most powerful combat companions in the game. And then later on, once I've built up a surplus of 308, I find I can give him the Gobi sniper rifle, and I can just hand him 500 308 ammo, and it'll be ages before he runs out. And he's very deadly with it. So I like to make sure in every playthrough that I pick up all the best unique variants of guns, because even if I'm not using a character that's designed to make excellent use of it, when or if I decide to go and do all of the companion missions, I'll have the unique powerful variants that I can give to the companion and allow the companion to excel. So the Gobi sniper rifle would be one I would use on Boone. The Q35 matter modulator is a fairly easy one to get. I like to try and get the headquarters, the Repcon headquarters, done fairly early to grab that one, partly also because it's an upgrade for Eddie, who is, I consider him essential to being a sniper character. I'm always very sad when I can't play with Eddie, which the DLC doesn't let you do. Boo! So that was just me popping a coyote chew thing to get +1 perception, which raised my lockpick by 2, which brought it up to 91, and then a locksmith reader was all needed to get up to 100. And that happened so fast, I couldn't really explain how to do lockpick over a video of me doing it. It's muscle memory for me now. But you can get there with practice. For the people who find it very frustrating, and I understand why they do, when you're first learning how to do it, it's quite tricky. And there are some people for whom thumbsticks don't come naturally, and I would imagine on PC it must be really hard to do. Maybe not. Maybe they have a really easy way for doing it on PC. I don't know. Using a thumbstick on a console, it's incredibly easy, and so it would be really hard to explain how to do it. Other than I've just developed the muscle memory for doing it effectively. So at this point, I'm now basically just leaving. This incredibly long journey in video form is actually probably by Vault 34 completion standards fairly quick. I'd imagine that a tankier character in the hands of someone who has really memorized the map better than I can could probably get all of this done in 20 minutes with adequate preparation. So 51 minutes is by no means going to make any speed records or anything like that. But I do use all of the basic survival techniques that I sort of bring to bear from games like Skyrim and Fallout that I've learned over the years for navigating. And you certainly have a bit of a time limit in this one. I think at this point I found one of the med boxes. There's lots of radiation medicine in Vault 34, one of which has about 20 of each of them in it, and I found that one during this particular run through. So I think I ended up, I have far more now than I did when I went in. So it's not like the time limit is a scary one once you've got some experience doing Vault 34. But if you've only done it once or twice, it's still a very intimidating map. It's a very intimidating mission. It's underground, it's claustrophobic, it's easy to get lost, it's dark. I popped in and I used some. Oh, and I completely forgot about this thing. And like I said, this isn't a walkthrough. You wouldn't be able to do it the way I did it unless you have Science 100, because I completely skipped over this. One of the computer passwords that you would have to go get would be on this side. I did do the other one, although I drained the water first. So it didn't look like this. I never drained the water for this one. I probably skipped that computer entirely, to be honest. I'm not anal about doing every single step of the mission, and I was trying to get through it fairly quickly for the sake of not having the video be 2 hours long. So at this point, I mean, that was really just searching. The computer password was irrelevant at that point. I think it might even disappear once you've actually accessed the computer, which I did using the puzzle. So at this point, I'm just leaving, and not surprisingly, keeping a wall to my left turns out to be a fairly quick and easy way to navigate my way back out of this map. So that's what I end up doing for the rest of this. You'll notice I just pretty much keep a wall to my left, except for when I recognize the landmarks, which at certain points I do. There are sections of this that I recognize pretty well. But it's so easy to get turned around in here. So it's a good idea as you play back through. I wouldn't recommend this to somebody who hasn't done Vault 34 at least once, just because of the spoilers, really. But if you've only done it once or twice, I think the real takeaway lesson is to keep a wall to your left until you recognize a landmark. And as you work your way through, you will begin to recognize certain intersections. That's one of the ones that I'll recognize. The sign that sort of points in the direction of everything is another place that once you've found it, you sort of know you're transitioning between the upper sections and the lower sections of the map. And once you do that, you'll notice, look at how fast that was. Once you're in the upper sections, it's just a really quick jaunt right out the door. So I hope it covered. I hope that's useful. It was a bit hard to sort of organize it all in live recording, so I apologize for the fact that the information is fairly scattered and not well organized. But I did try and touch on as many subjects as I could. And spelunking is a really great, fun thing about games like this. I love to do it. It's a good idea to have some of these skills in your pocket. When you go do it, it makes getting through them quickly and easily and thoroughly a little easier, I find. And I like to be thorough. It's really good in these games to be thorough. The more stuff you find, the easier it gets. Thanks for listening, everyone.